Hello, this is Colin Liddell, the Chief Editor of Alternative Right. This is designed to be a short 5 to 10 minute podcast, updating our readers and listeners about matters relating to the site and commenting briefly on events of the day. And today is Sunday, the 4th of June, 2017. There's quite a lot going on, quite a few interesting things. But one thing I think I should comment on is the British election. To be quite honest, I haven't been too enthused by it. I found the recent French election a lot more interesting. I found the American election vastly more interesting. And this election has been something of a damp squib. Neither of the main parties are very appetizing. Both of their leaders are really third-rate politicians. Jeremy Corbyn is probably the best that the Labour Party can hope for right now in terms of vaguely likeable lunatic. Theresa May, she's obviously a fast-tracked, mediocre-minded, privileged bitch. So the British people have really got the shitty end of the stick with this choice. There's no real nationalist party. In France, you have the Front National. In Germany, you have Alternative für Deutschland. In Holland, Geert Wilders. And so, I mean, at least the voters have a choice if they want to be a bit ethno-nationalist or a bit identitarian. But in Britain, you've got UKIP, a kind of washed-out, clapped-out little party that has served its function in helping to get us to Brexit, but which has collapsed in the polls, and which, even if it was popular, it wouldn't really do anything for nationalism, to be honest. So your choices are Labour and Conservative, and they're both equally as crap as each other. The Conservatives are quite happily running the country, allowing in 500,000 immigrants a year, and the Labour would obviously not be much better. They might fuck up the economy more, and then that would put some limits on immigration, possibly by destroying welfare. But then again, who knows? They might not. They might be able to bring in even more than the Conservatives. It's a real shit show, the British election, and the choices offered to the electorate. So this is the reason I haven't really been interested in this election at all. Now, the election is so boring that our Muslim terrorist fraternity have felt sorry for us, and they've decided to try to add some interest to the election by launching a colourful terrorist attack in the central London. Apparently a group of Muslims, about I think there might have been between 3 and 5 of them, got in a van. They drove along London Bridge, mowing down as many pedestrians as they could manage. When they got to the other end, they then jumped out and ran around with knives, stabbing as many people as they could until the police arrived and shot them down. Now, this terrorist attack, again, it's a terrible terrorist attack, and there are ways that these terrorist attacks can be avoided. In the Alternative Right, we have numerous solutions, numerous ideas about how to deal with this problem once and for all. A final solution, as Katie Hopkins might say. But, of course, the country is not quite ready. They're not as far along as we are. And so they're going to have a lot more pain before they can, get to the sunlit uplands where we currently bask. Anyway, so as usual, it's a tragedy for the people involved, and it has a vague smell of déjà vu about it for the rest of us. But one interesting thing about the terrorist attack is the possible influence and effect that it will have on the general election. And the general election is only a few days away, and so this attack has kind of been timed to have a kind of maximum impact. It's a bit of a kind of Joe Cox event, and you'll remember that The Joe Cox event I'm referring to was the murder by a mentally deranged man of a kind of youngish female Labour MP who was very, very supportive of the Remain position in the days just before the Brexit vote. And that incident kind of worked in favour of Remain. Ultimately, Brexit was won by 52 to 48%, but without the Joe Cox murder, probably it would have been something like 60% to 40%. So these kinds of events can have a bit of an impact on the election. Now, what effect will the London Bridge terrorist attack have on the British election? I would say that it's probably going to help Theresa May. Now, the reason for that is Jeremy Corbyn is associated in the public mind with Muslims and terrorism. He is on record as being kind of very fellow traveller-ish with the IRA and groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, which are in the public mind, rightly or wrongly, associated with terrorism. Now, interestingly, Theresa May, she called this election because the Tories were leading in the opinion polls by a considerable margin, over 20 percentage points. And there was an expectation that the Conservative Party would then secure a massive, enormous landslide victory that would ensure Theresa May's power for the next 5 years and give her a lot of authority in dealing with the EU. And that was the expectation, but she ended up fighting such a poor campaign and making so many fundamental errors that Jeremy Corbyn started to climb up the opinion polls. Now, one of the reasons for that is that the voters or the supporters of smaller parties realise that they're not going to really have much influence on the election by voting for their party. People like Lib Dem supporters, people like Green Party supporters or UKIP supporters. So a lot of those people have started to think more tactically, and I'd say that a lot of the Lib Dem support, which is dropping in the opinion polls, is going directly to Jeremy Corbyn. Some of the UKIP support is probably also going to Jeremy Corbyn. I say that because a lot of the UKIP support is actually elderly, unlike in France where the Front National support tends to be younger people. And one of the big mistakes that Theresa May made was pissing off the older voters by threatening to make them pay for their medical care in their dotage, but only if they had assets like a house or property. So that pissed off a lot of the oldies, and I think some of those UKIP oldies are actually going to Labour because of that. Anyway, so Labour have been climbing up in the polls. In recent days, Jeremy Corbyn has managed to break through 40 percentage points. The gap between the two parties is down to something like 5%. And so for a time, people were wondering, could Jeremy Corbyn actually do it? Now, also another thing that should be pointed out is that the constituency system favours Labour. Labour constituencies tend to lose population, Conservative constituencies tend to gain population, and the net result of that means that you need more people to vote in a Tory than a Labour MP. And so with a 5% gap closing and Labour's kind of structural advantage through the constituency system, there was a bit of a chance of Labour actually even getting a majority, and a much bigger chance of them actually just creating a hung parliament. Now, in a hung parliament, that would also be kind of interesting because the Labour Party and the SNP, the Scottish Nationalist Party in Scotland, which is in fact not a nationalist party at all, but a very, very, very left-wing cultural Marxist party, those two parties would then be able to get together and run the country. So things were looking a bit dicey, or not as the case may be, because obviously Theresa May is not going to do anything any differently, probably. But anyway, the terrorist attack, I think that will push things back in her direction. Now, a lot of people, they'll see this attack and they'll join it up in their minds with the Manchester bombing and the Westminster terrorist attack a few weeks ago. And they'll feel, they'll feel insecure. They'll feel in danger. They'll feel worried about terrorism. And at the same time, they'll feel that they can't really be Islamophobic about it. And they'll feel that they have to do something and they need to vote for somebody who's going to protect them in some vague, nebulous way. And of course, that person is not Theresa May, but it's definitely not Jeremy Corbyn either. And Jeremy Corbyn's image, which will be, of course, amplified by the Tory media, the Sun, Rupert Murdoch's Sun newspaper, the Daily Mail, all these kind of Tory rags, they'll harp on about Jeremy Corbyn's terroristic image, and a lot of the voters will start to be gaslit about that, and they'll start to see Jeremy Corbyn as a bit of a wild card, a bit of a dangerous person to put in charge of the country at a difficult time like this. And so I think this will push a lot of the stupid voters, which, sadly it's a majority, back onto the Theresa May train. So my prediction for the UK election is that Theresa May's Conservative Party will get about 47% of the vote. Labour will come in about 10 points behind them, so I'm predicting 37% for them. And then you'll have about 16% left over for the Lib Dems, UKIP, the Greens, SNP, etc. Anyway, that's my latest prediction. My last one about the French election was wrong. This one might be wrong as well. Anyway, that's all for today, so over and out.